Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech About Town, brought to you by Communitech and Elevate IP. My name is Alex Kinsella.
And I'm Allison Peel.
Today we're in the studio and it's been a whirlwind of a week. We had our open house.
Yeah, it sure has. We had our open house on Wednesday afternoonish.
That's one thing.
Yeah, we had our founder showcase, which celebrated the recent startup boot camp graduates. So that was our second cohort we've put on. And last night we had our Scale Up social, celebrating and connecting and providing some networking opportunities for those who are part of the Scale Up programming here at Communitech.
So all the team, especially Victoria, are super tired. Victoria's the events person here. If you've never met her, but if you come to an event, you will. And now, to add a fourth thing to our list of this week, we're doing a podcast. Here's a question for you. What if your Wi-Fi could do more than just connect your devices? For Taj Manku, co-founder and CEO of Cognitive Systems, a personal caregiving challenge sparked a professional breakthrough. When his aging parents experienced medical emergencies, Manku found himself navigating the emotional and logistical weight of caregiving while raising a family and running a fast-growing tech company here in Waterloo. That experience led to Caregiver by Cognitive, an elder care solution powered by Wi-Fi Motion, software that turns ambient Wi-Fi signals into a passive way to monitor movement in the home with no cameras, no microphones, and no extra effort from aging loved ones. In this episode of Tech About Town, Taj is in the studio to share how his team built a privacy-first tool that helps families worry less, the challenges of elder tech adoption, and why Waterloo continues to be the perfect home base for Cognitive's global impact. Welcome to the studio.
It's great to be here.
I'm just going to jump right in because this is it's very relevant to my life and my situation because my parents are aging. Full disclosure, quicker than we thought they would. And things have been kind of challenging between myself and my sister and taking care of them and their house and our young kids. And they have a second house and it's been everywhere. And so when Alex was doing the intro, what I love the most is there's no extra effort from aging loved ones. So as an example, a little bit of a rant, but my dad will often call when I'm at work, bless his heart, and say, the TV's not working. Because they switched to Rogers Ignite or whatever it is, and now there's all these different channels, and I'm like, okay, Dad, but I'm at work right now. Can I fix it? And then he'll be like, well, where's Josh, who is my husband? And I'm like, well, he's also at work right now. So I love it. I love that this is something that they can just be there, and it doesn't take anything away or any more knowledge for them to have to learn amongst. For my parents' situation, everything else they have to remember, all the doctor's appointments and what this doctor said and what that doctor said. And so I think that's so amazing.
Yeah. So I also have it in my house, and I think was sort of the starting point because during COVID, it was hard to visit my parents, and I sort of needed to know whether they were doing okay or not okay. And Cognitive actually started as a company that was using Wi-Fi to determine if people are moving around. And we initially targeted a market through the ISPs, like the internet service providers. Comcast is a big customer of ours. Rogers is actually launching right now. So that's how we sort of started. And then I started doing experiments with my parents where I would have a system there and I could sort of see, they're moving around, they're waking up, they've gone to bed. There's a couple of interruptions at night. And that information started to become quite valuable to me. And then we sort of developed the product from that standpoint. And my parents are essentially like the first customers. And what ended up happening, it started resonating really well. And then we thought, well, how can we make this so that it's really cost effective? Because what we had initially was a little bit pricey. And then we said, okay, let's figure out a way how we can make this relatively price free almost for people where they wouldn't think about it. And we figured out a way how we could use some of the stuff that you see on the market, like those smart plugs. We started using these smart plugs, and we had our software on them, and those are really inexpensive. And now we got a solution that's really inexpensive, very easy to install, and then all the people that are testing it, and some of our customers, they love it just because, one, it's easy to install. Two, it's non-invasive. Nobody really likes to be monitored, like parents. and they're very conscientious about a camera in their house. They're even conscientious about, sometimes you see these motion sensors that might be sitting up in a corner at the top of the corner. Some people think that those are actually cameras, like some elderly folks, so they don't want that either. And there's also solutions there where they listen to people's voices, but that's also a privacy issue. Because I know my parents, even for their Google Mini, they use it a lot to play music. But when they don't have it, they unplug it. So they don't like the idea of all these evasive type technologies. But this one, because it's just a bunch of plugs, and the nice thing about this plug, and the idea came from my mother essentially, because when we had the initial solution, I would be plugging this stuff around, and what ended up happening, my mom says, well, you have all these stuff around, like, how am I going to plug the vacuum? So that's why we use the smart plug, because there's a through, you can plug still into it. Right. And it's a small thing, but it was a big thing for her, right? And now that they have it and we've been using it for a while, we're launching it across America and Canada. We're also looking at launching it in UK and Europe. And so far, everybody seems to really love the product simply because it's relatively inexpensive, easy to install, and it provides a lot of value to people like me who need to know that their parents are okay, but sometimes I can't always go visit them every single day. Right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I was thinking of, like the smart plug thing is great because I know a lot of the elderly people in my life live in older homes that have either limited electrical sockets in their house just because it's an older house and it's not, the code didn't mean you have to have, 2 on every wall like you do today. But the other thing it kind of made me think of, we were caring for one of my wife's great uncles who unfortunately passed away since then, but he had on the traditional fall detector. So we were always getting these alerts at sometimes 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We didn't know if he had just kind of taken it off. We didn't know if it was an actual fall and an emergency. With this system, it's more than just waiting for something to happen. This is very much like, not a predictive, but it gives you real time kind of insights. Can you kind of go into that?
Yeah. So some of the things that we have is, some of the things I use a lot with my parents is, we have one feature which is called Rise and Shine. And Rise and Shine is essentially just sending me a notification that they essentially woken up. And I don't get the notification exactly when they wake up because my parents actually wake up quite early, but they go to sleep early. They typically wake up about 6. So I set it up so that I would get a notification at 10. And why that's, so I get a notification that they've woken up. I know everything's okay. It also sort of gives me a moment to say, hey, maybe I should, WhatsApp my mom, see how she's doing, just have a little conversation with her. So it sort of inspires me to do that. So that's one thing. The other thing I really like about it is that we have this thing called last motion. It's basically just a thing that says, hey, the last motion in the house was 7:21. And it's probably, let's say it is 7:21. So I know, they're moving around. So I know everything's okay. I also get to see how active they are. And I also get to see how inactive they are. That's very important. And when you take all this information, like there's a lot of people who've written papers on, sleep ability and activity. And when ends up happening is if the sleep starts degrading and the activity starts degrading, that usually means there's a sign of some problem. And we're trying to address it before it continues on. Like even for my mom, she had some issue with her ear, and the sleeping habits were sort of a bit odd. There was a lot of interruptions at night. And so we sort of addressed it fairly quickly because we could figure it out. And just like most parents, they don't actually tell you all the time what's wrong because they don't want to worry you. Right? So sometimes they just don't tell you anything and you don't know if they're doing okay or not. They'll always sound like they're doing great. But this sort of gives me another dimension to see, hey, is everything okay? And it also tells me, for example, that we get this inactivity alert, which really helps me because I know when they've gone out. So it tells me, hey, they're gone. It tells me, hey, they've left the house. And then when they come back, it tells me they got back. So it also gives me comfort. And sometimes they come and visit me. They come to my house and they live out in Cambridge. So it's a bit of a drive for them. So I like to see when the last motion, which tells me when they left And then when they get here, it's great. And then when they go back, I get to see, oh, they got home, everything's okay. And sort of gives me a little bit of comfort with regards to, that they are elder and my dad still drives. So it sort of provides me a bit of comfort.
It's interesting because you mentioned how like they don't. I mean, I guess much like when we were all teenagers, we didn't like to be watched.
No.
Right? It wasn't as easy for some when we were to be watched.
I don't like to be watched now.
Me neither. Me neither. And my kids are like, "Why are you always watching us?" And I'm like, "Well, because I'm your mother." You mentioned how they don't really like that, but you also touched on something else that I find is very relevant again with my parents. So my mom will very quickly tell me how my dad is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, well, your dad didn't sleep well, or he, didn't eat lunch, or like whatever. But she won't ever tell me about how she's doing. So I'm like, remember, Mom, like you're both in this situation, right? You're both health is not the greatest. How would you say, like, do you think at least with your parents, like, has it helped kind of open up those conversations? Because kind of in a way, you're going in with like, I'm noticing this, Mom, or like I've seen this, or
yeah, I approach it. Very tactical. So I would just, so for example, let's say there is a lot of interruptions at night. I would just ask, hey, is everything okay? Are you guys sleeping okay? Or is there some sort of problem that you need to, address or anything like that? I wouldn't particularly say right away, hey, I've noticed that, hey, you're having this and there's 5 interruptions here. I wouldn't get into that level of detail. I would just approach it from the point of view of, hey, is everything okay? And then once that conversation goes, they sort of open up and will tell me what's going on. But you have to let that conversation develop.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling a lot of elders, I mean, one day I'm going to be an elder, and I know that, I'm going to be probably not telling everything to my kids either. But the nice thing about this, it's very invasive. Like you don't even know it's there. Right. With the pendant thing that you talked about, it's actually a good technology and it works quite well. But the thing is, a lot of people they forget to wear it.
Yeah.
And for example, if you're thinking about a fall scenario, if the typically what ends up happening is like 30% of people on average forget to wear it. So when you're not wearing it, the probability of you determining that they're falling is 0. You can never figure it out because they don't have it. And this thing, they don't have to wear anything. It's just, it's plugged in. And then you're really looking for more, are they getting themselves into a problem where they may fall? Because if there's lots of interruptions at night, that is usually a leading cause of them falling because they wake up, they're sort of in a daze. Like, when you wake up in the middle of the night, you go to the washroom, you're a little bit daisy and you lose your footing and you could fall. So if you have more of those, that's something that you need to address. So it's more trying to figure out these problems rather than, oh, the problem already happened and now I got to somehow get an ambulance there and deal with it. It's still, those things are important, like the pendants and stuff, but we're trying to be more proactive, I guess, in terms of helping people.
Like this wouldn't tie into emergency services or a call center. Right? This is more just for the family, and then the family can, if they need to.
So we do have customers who are delivering it to in-home care, and so that they have a nurse, and they actually will install it and install the stuff, and then they have a dashboard which they actually look at the customer to make sure, and they send a report to the caregiver. It could be the caregiver, could be a nurse, it could be a son or a daughter. So they provide this to them through maybe email or some sort of mechanism. So we also do that through other companies. So that's what that's our B2B strategy, and that's potentially what we mainly do. We do direct consumer, but the direct consumer, we're just really launching it in Canada.
Right.
And we're just trying to see, just trying to understand the market a little bit. So there is a website, caregiver.ca, where people can actually go purchase the devices just in Canada. But majority of our business is really around B2B, meaning providing it to these in-home care companies, and they go out and deliver this to other folks.
With the system, this is a very technical, nerdy question, but if you have two elderly parents, does the system differentiate between them, or is it kind of like subject one, subject two? Kind
Yeah,
of
no,
thing?
it sort of just combines the
Okay.
information together.
Okay.
So, for example, with my parents, if there is a lot of sleep interruptions, I might not know who it is. That's why the conversation has to happen. But the one thing that sort of works when there's two in the house is that they still have a sort of a buddy relationship. I mean, if something happens to one, the other one will sort of take care of it. Like, for example, if the person falls or hurts themselves, there's somebody else. But the majority of our market that we sort of address is generally where there's just a single person living at home. And so there's no other person there to sort of help them if something goes wrong, right? So in that particular case, when we started dealing with our B2B sector, which is the in-home care, they will be just monitoring and seeing if everything's okay. So they'll have a back end. And if they see something really weird going on with patterns, they'll notify a nurse or whatever, and then they will then try to see if they can provide some sort of attention to that problem.
Well, I mean, like especially around the idea of aging gracefully at home or aging with dignity at home, this is really saying to people, you can do that, but you're not doing it alone. You can live independently, but your family or a caregiver in the B2B case is looking out for you.
Yeah. It just sort of helps, provide less worry to people.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I would say about myself. It was just more to make me worry less. And, every day when I see the rise and shine, okay, they're good.
Yeah.
Right?
It gives you that because my father has said multiple times, I'm not moving.
Yeah.
I'm not moving.
Yeah, I get the same.
I bought this house. I worked my tail off to pay for this house. I'm not moving. And so it's interesting because it really does give them, because my sister and I we're a good team. So we are like back and forth. So one of us is talking to them at least every day. But sometimes you have that in life. Again, like I have young kids, so it's like, didn't get a chance to call today, but then my brain starts going, oh my gosh, I didn't get a chance to call, and my mom didn't call me, and now she knows how to text. So sometimes I'll get a text and it's like, I didn't get a text. So then you start to kind of have that.
You start to worry.
You really start to worry. It's interesting, and I'd love to learn, I mean, as much as you can share, obviously, but the B2B side, are you, because I would imagine we've had home care for my parents, and I would imagine that would make it so much easier because we all know, might not be a popular comment, but there's not a whole lot of nurses or not a whole lot of funding for nurses and caregiver staff. Have you found, like, is there a good uptake there? Like, is it really helping that industry?
Yeah, it is. It's helping it a lot because there's a bunch of stuff that's going on in the industry. So a lot of the tech that's in that industry is relatively old, and the pendant is it's still good tech. It works. Yeah. It works well when the person wears it, but there's always been this thing. Well, the person has to wear it, and so people have been trying to figure out ways in where they can monitor without having them do anything, meaning putting something on or making sure they carry something. And in the B2B, that is really important. And because people are always looking for technology, and I think we've solved it where it's very passive. There's nothing that they need to do in the morning to enable this, and that is that's really important in this industry. And so when they're delivering it to customers, we get a lot of great feedback, like, "Hey, this is non-invasive, easy to install. I don't even know it's here." It provides me a little bit of, this is the elders speaking, it provides them a little bit more, like they're a little bit less worried about, hey, if something goes wrong with me or something, there's somebody sort of helping me with that. Not all of them are like that, mind away. There's a portion of them that are like that do that, but it really makes a big difference for the person doing the caring. It just, that's typically, and even when you think about who pays for it, it's always the person who's caring.
Right.
It's never going to be the parents saying, "Hey, I'm going to monitor. I want you to monitor me, and I'm going to pay so many dollars per month for you to do that." This is never going to happen.
Right.
So the B2B is really just focusing on the customer wanting to worry less, and then it goes into their loved like their parents or whatever's house.
Well, kind of riffing on the same B2B thing, cognitive, I can't even say it. Cognitive has been around for a number of years.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a household name, unfortunately, because
Yeah.
B2B makes it a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
As you are building this B2C channel, how do you approach that from a branding and a company culture perspective too? Because
It's different.
yeah,
It is very different, and it's also very challenging because most of our business, and even my past companies, like I've had a couple, it's always been B2B. There's been some B2C, but B2C is a very different type of dynamics. It's very marketing heavy. Getting people to know about your product it takes a lot of effort. And so we do spend some time on the B2C, but the B2C is really just, for us, it's like capturing a bunch of customers, understanding if our price point is right, does it install well? Because sometimes with the B2B, we don't get all that information, right? And so it sort of helps us, guide us in terms of, hey, if we have a customer, we can talk to them directly, and if they have any issues or any comments, we will get them directly. So it sort of helps us. That's why our launch is mainly just in Canada right now. We're not addressing the US.
Yeah. From a B2B branding perspective, how do you look to build that up?
Yeah, so there is a lot of, we sort of class it into two types of B2B. There's what we call the PERS market, which are the ones that provide the pendant.
Okay.
So there's around, well, I would say about 20 to 50 big companies in North America providing that. So we go directly to them, okay? And then the in-home care, that's a little bit bigger. There's about 30,000 of these in-home care providers. So the tactic for marketing into that is a little bit different. But a lot of them right now, we're just focusing on outbound, just going outbound and connecting. And eventually that will convert, because my experience is it'll start converting into inbound. And so that's how we're sort of addressing those two markets, the PER and the in-home care type market. And then the B2C one obviously is just very different because now I just think of it's like millions of people and they don't know anything about you. They know anything about this technology. So you're going to get first adopters and people who are interested. And first adopters are good for us because they're usually quite vocal. They tell you, hey, if something's working or not working. And that just feeds back to the company and just helps us make the product better and better.
Yeah.
I always think the branding thing is always funny. I find in healthcare, elder care, anything in that space, because I think when I go to any medical facility, all the equipment has brands on it. I know 1 out of 10. GE would probably be the one. If I see GE has a consumer wing, it has enterprise, it has medical. Is that kind of in your head when you think about this from your B2B side of the business and now B2C? Are you looking to build Cognitive as a kind of in your mind brand for elder care? Yeah.
So this is why we have. So when we are sending to B2B, we typically call it a caregiving by Cognitive. So that's usually, and then for the B2C, it's just called caregiving. And we want to focus on the caregiving tagline for both sectors, but we're really focused on that being our market and hopefully bringing some brand value to the caregiving. I think it'll happen faster in B2B because people will be launching, because if you get, like, we already have a bunch of customers there and they're growing and people are starting to know about it, and other B2B companies are starting to know about us as well because they're seeing, hey, this guy has it, maybe something we should be doing too, because now they're winning customers away from us. So then it sort of grows in that industry that, hey, we need to get this. And we did the same thing in the ISP market when we were delivering our software to people like Comcast, Rogers, there's a bunch of companies there. We initially started with a couple, and then now everybody that's in the ISP space knows about us.
Yep.
Every single one. And everyone is now we get a lot of inbound leads saying, hey, we'd like to install it. And we even get companies out in Singapore, like everywhere. And so they come in, they say they want it. And we see the same will happen with the caregiver side of the business as well. Eventually, there'll be a lot of inbound after people realize this.
Yeah, because as you alluded to, right, they don't want to be the last one there, right? And they're going to eventually review and be like, oh, why are we losing market share here? And then they're going to recognize that, oh, all of this arm or this umbrella has this cognitive caregiver software, and how do we get it, and how do we be a part of it?
Yeah. And it's slowly happening where people are thinking, well, maybe they're going to launch it. Maybe we should start testing it out ourselves. And we get a lot of that now. But I expect more of it will happen if it sort of is similar to the way we delivered it to the ISP business, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to Cognitive as a company, been in Waterloo for forget how many years now.
Well, Cognitive has been around for about 11 years.
11 years now.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a household name in the area. Is that a goal for you?
I think.
I know it's kind of a weird question.
No, it's. I think for us, we initially always did B2B, and the people that know of us, like in the ISP market, pretty much everybody knows about us. So from that perspective, the crowd that should know about us knows about us. We didn't really focus too much on the Cognitive brand in terms of household people knowing. And a lot of the ISPs, they launched their own version. They even brand it differently. So with Comcast, it's called Xfinity Sensing or something like that. So they would go ahead and they would brand it and go forward. Yeah. We would just be in the background, basically getting money from them.
Yeah. Which is great.
Great. And then I think we'll continue down that path. So we're not going to try to focus on making it big because it doesn't really, like Cognitive for ISP doesn't work out. But I think for the caregiving side of things, we would like to, a lot of these customers to know about caregiving, specifically caregiving by Cognitive. That's the brand that we want to go after, the B2B. And so that's what we're focusing on right now.
Yeah. It reminds me of kind of bringing us back, Alex, but it's whole, like, people thought BlackBerry was the company, but really RIM was the company, right? And so I can see Caregiver really taking off in the B2C market, but then in the B2B market, it's caregiving by Cognitive, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting how you have that. And especially if you have that channel to buy direct, I can definitely see like lots of children or caregivers looking at how can they get that and bringing that name more recognition for sure.
Yeah.
Now I'm just trying to figure out how to work a house of brand or a branded house into my. That's always. I think I actually used that in an article this week, or no, I did use it somewhere. It doesn't matter. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Like we did go slightly off topic on the branding, which I always like though because I work in marketing and I'm always excited to learn about it.
But it was very, very interesting.
We'll have all the information in the show notes. Once again, I'm Alex.
And I'm Allison.
Thank you again for listening. If you're interested in learning more about Communitech and the programs that can help you start, grow, and succeed, you can visit communitech.ca or follow along on social media on all the platforms, Instagram and Facebook and X. Blue Sky, we talked about that. But
LinkedIn,
really
let's not forget
LinkedIn
that one.
happened too.
Thank you for joining us.